State. We're glad to be with you. And I am glad to share the air with my friend Sparky Reardon, who is, in addition to a lot of other things, now officially an author. He's been writing for a long time, but now he has a book that goes on the bookshelf and one that you can get an autographed copy of if you so desire. Sparky Reardon, former dean of students at Ole Miss, longtime Ole Miss baseball and sports fan. And there are a lot of people that call Sparky a friend. I am included in that, full disclosure. But most of the people that call Sparky Reardon a friend cannot claim to, for multiple years, cashing a check every 2 weeks from him in the amount of $25 for mowing his grass. Because Sparky was my neighbor in Oxford, and I mowed his grass for a really long time years and years ago. Sparky, good morning. Thanks so much for spending some time with us.
That $25 was the best money I ever spent.
Well, I am glad to hear it.
Thank you for having me in this morning, Richard.
So some of those hills in the yard, you didn't want to walk with a lawnmower anymore anyway.
Can I tell the story about looking out my front window one time and seeing you on the riding lawnmower on the two back wheels sanding up, and I thought, oh, my God, he's dead.
Lance, this is a true story. He came out and he said, Richard, I don't want you to use a riding mower in my yard anymore. And I was like, what? He's like, you're going to kill yourself. He's like, you're going to have to use a push mower, which was not what I wanted to hear at the time. I will tell you this, and then we'll move on to The Dean, Memoirs and Missives, his new book in just a second. Maybe the best part for me, and I'm glad Sparky didn't know this at the time because I liked those $25 checks, but as the dean of students and a guy that worked with a bunch of fraternities and sororities in his time, I would occasionally be handed a Kroger sack that had a bunch of T-shirts in it. And you want to talk about feeling like I got a bag full of gold when I was 12 or 13 years old, and I had all these Panhellenic T-shirts. That was great at the time.
That was I was glad to get rid of them. I had no use for them.
There's the truth. All right, so this book, The Dean, Memoirs and Missives, I can't count the number of times I have read things that you've written on Facebook where the comments followed up with, Sparky, you've got to write a book. You've heard that for a really long time. You finally did it. What pushed you over the edge and said, all right, let's do this?
Well, the comments on Facebook were a big part of it, but there were some people, particularly Kay Bryant. If you know Kay in Oxford, she is a force, and she kept calling me and pushing me. And at a party one night, she pulled me into a corner with a wonderful woman who was my freshman comp teacher, Ann Abity, who is a noted editor for the Center for the Study of Southern Culture. And Kay said, Sparky, you're going to write this book, and Ann's going to help you. And Ann agreed, and we started meeting. Unfortunately, Ann passed away last summer, and the book was dead. Didn't have a publisher, didn't really have anybody helping me edit and put it together. And fortunately, Neil White called me and said he was working on a book in Clarksdale and asked if I would ride with him. I think he wanted me to give him a little lay of the land in terms of people and gossip and legends and that kind of stuff. And I can weave a tale or two about Clarksdale. And so we rode over and had a great day. And on the way back, he said, how's the book coming? And I told him that I thought it was dead. And as we talked, he looked at me and said, let's do it. And so we started in October of 24 and got to working pretty hard. And then in January, we signed a contract, and the book came out 2 weeks early. It's been a lot of fun to do. It has not been a job. It is not. I guess a job is not something that you do with something that you love. I mean, to me, that's a passion.
And I think it's pretty evident in the stories. And it's a collection of stories. It's an interesting read in the fact that you don't have to start on page 1 and read all the way to page 300 or however many pages there are and not stop to get the entire story. It's a collection of stories, some of which you had previously written, some of which you put pen to paper and did specifically for this book. And it kind of goes back to the beginning of your time at Ole Miss. And to me, the theme, and you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the theme that I picked up on was just relationships that you built over an extended period of time in your role as dean of students, and kind of all that exposed you to. Is that a reasonable way to summarize?
I think it is, but I think the relationship is only the subject. When people talk about writing, they imagine putting a pen to paper and the hand flowing across the page or across the keyboard. When in reality, I think writing is watching and listening and remembering and questioning and caring, and then kind of putting all those in a file, and then figuring out how those relationships affect other things, affect each other, and then you get to the keyboard or the legal pad and start writing.
Hmm.
And I can't emphasize enough the aware. We've got to look around in awareness. We just can't be in this fog of that's happening over there, and I don't care what it is. Well, you maybe should care what it is. It's got a good story with it.
You know, Oxford is a place that has changed dramatically over the last 35, 40 years, and you've had a chance to see it up close and personal. There have been some very real characters that have been here. One of the early stories that you write about in the book is your time with Ron Shapiro, who was a local legend. He was the proprietor, I guess is the right way to describe it, at the Hoka. Tell us a little bit about the Hoka for those people that don't know anything about it. There's an apartment complex or a new condo complex that's going in where the Hoka used to sit, kind of over in the neighborhood of Nukes.
Yeah, I think to be fair, to put it in context, when I wrote about Ron and the Hoka, it was in a chapter about what caused Oxford to change from the old Oxford to the new Oxford. And I cited what I consider the four pillars of change, one being the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, Square Books, the Hoka, and Willie Morris. All of those things came together in a very short time in the late 1970s and early 80s. And I call the chapter Lightning in a Bottle, because all of a sudden Oxford exploded. Now, there are things like football and the Eli factor and, economic development. All those things are huge. But I really don't think Oxford would have become what we are today had it not been for those four entities. Ron Shapiro was a friend, a good friend and a character. And he was just kind of this mythical spirit who existed around Oxford. He had a infectious laugh. He had a sense of humor. He would run for office and call himself the minister of subculture, and his motto would be "Throw the rascals in." And as
He
I
never
said in the
won an
book,
election, right?
he never won an election, but he was active on many committees appointed by the mayor, and was a vocal proponent of maintaining Oxford as uh, not letting it get out of control. And he was uh, he was smart. Gosh, he was smart, and I think he went to Washington University in St. Louis, and knew Harold Ramis, who wrote Animal House, and he just had this spirit that he would take in anybody. It didn't matter whether you were a U.S. senator or a freshman on down on your luck, or some guy on the street in Oxford. They were all the same to Ron. They were children of the earth, children of God, and he was going to treat them as such. And I think that was the beauty of his life. And I cite in the book that some people want to build a statue to Ron in Oxford, And I agree with the sentiment, but I'm not big on statues. I think if you saw Ron on the square, you would see him riding his bicycle, maybe with a jester's hat on or a Rastafarian tam. And I think it ought to be a bronze bicycle somewhere with a jester's hat on the back, with a bell that actually you could actually ring the bell as he would,
Ring the bell.
and every time you heard it, it would remind you that you're never too old to have a happy childhood.
We're going to continue the conversation with Sparky Reardon on the other side of this break. An excerpt from the book. 15 years ago yesterday, I was thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into? We'll talk about the 2008 presidential debate on the Ole Miss campus and maybe dig in on Willie Morris and perhaps even Jimmy Buffett when we come back. Sparky Reardon is my guest on Mornings with Richard Cross, former Dean of Students at Ole Miss and author of The Dean, Memoirs and Missives. If you would like to get a copy of the book, you may do so pretty much anywhere books are sold in the South. If you would like a signed copy of the book, the months of August and September are going to be busy for Sparky. He'll be at Square Books in Oxford on August 15th. That's actually at Off Square Books at 5:30. Lost Dog Coffee in Taylor, which is where Sparky joins us from this morning, the thriving metropolis that is Taylor, Mississippi. That's on August 17th. August 19th, he'll be at Lemuria in Jackson. In Cleveland on August 20th. Clarksdale on August 21st. Back in his hometown. August 25th, he'll be in New Orleans at Garden District Books. Past Christian Books on August 26th. Gumtree Books in Tupelo on September 4th. Is there a place that people can keep up with the book signings and the locations?
Yeah, they can just come to my Facebook page. I guess they can see it. I'm not sure. You know, I'm not a social media sprinter, by the way.
Okay.
So
I didn't know if there was an X account that we needed to give for the book or not.
Let me work on that. I'll let you know.
All right, that'll be good. We'll keep people up to date. One of the gifts that I believe you have, and you and I've talked about this before, is the ability to remember people's names, which is, I suppose, important in your former role as Dean of Students, but at the same time, I would think overwhelming when you talk about a few thousand new freshmen coming onto campus each year, and it felt like you knew everybody's name. How did you do that?
I used to kid around and say that if I were a car salesman, I would be able to name every car on my lot. If I was a good car salesman. And so years ago, I was having a tough time in my life, and a student who had been a freshman when I was a senior dropped me a note out of the blue and said, you know, I was thinking about quitting school until I remembered that I saw you every day and you called me by my name, and nobody else did. And I thought, wow, names are really important. So I tried to just develop a method of the first time I met somebody to call them by their name in our initial conversation at least 5 times, to use their name 5 times. And in that first conversation, the last thing I would say would be their name, like "See you later, Richard Cross," and then I would make a concerted effort to try to recall within 10 or 15 minutes who that person was that I just met, and maybe relate some identifying factor that or relationship. This person had long hair or an earring in her left ear or whatever. Just to make some association. Then a day later, if I thought, what did I do yesterday? I would say, who is that person I met? And then the recall is the real thing. I have to be honest, when I was at Ole Miss and they used to do the freshman directory, I would get my hands on that. And it made it a whole lot easier to remember people's names. And then, of course, that was the inspiration for Facebook. And when Facebook came along, as a piece of cake. And it's a heavy burden to supposed to be able to remember everybody's name. I'll have some jerk come up to me in the Grove and say, I was here in 1987 and you're supposed to remember everybody's name. Who am I? And I would say, well, really, I try to remember those people that made an impression or that I cared about. Now, what's your name again? So be careful if you approach me like that.
There you go. My eyes and my mind perked up when I saw Jimmy Buffett's name mentioned in your book, and I think that was, if I remember correctly, through a connection with Willie Morris. There some cast of characters that must have been. Tell me about the Jimmy Buffett connection.
We had booked, I did student programming at Ole Miss, and at the time I was doing it, we had booked Jimmy Buffett for a Monday night concert at the Tad Pad. And, when Jimmy Buffett came to Mississippi, everybody was kin to him. Everybody knew somebody that knew somebody, and they wanted to get backstage. So he came in early to do a Sunday night sound check. And that afternoon, his road manager had called me and said, hey, Sparky, uh, Jimmy would like to meet Willie Morris. And can you help? Well, Willie was a friend of mine. And I said, let me see what I can do. And I knew it was no good to call Willie on his telephone, because if he were writing, he would put the telephone in the refrigerator and close the door and not answer it. So in a break in the setup, as we were getting ready for the sound check, I rode over to Willie's house on Faculty Row, walked up the stairs and into the kitchen, and there he was at the dining room table writing. And I said, Willie, uh, uh, Jimmy Buffett, the singer, is here and wants to meet you. And he said, uh, who is Jimmy, as Willie would say, who is Jimmy Buffet? And I said, he's a Southern poet, is what I told Willie. He's a singer. And so he said, okay. And it was Sunday night. He said, how about we go to dinner at the Sizzler? So I went back and talked to the road manager. He cleared it with Jimmy. And so I went and picked Willie up, brought him to the sound check. We got in the car. Willie was fortified with Bolivar Policella, his favorite wine, and Jimmy had a handle of something, and we took off to the Sizzler, which at the time probably about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and the post Sunday night church crowd was in there, and so we sat at a table, the three of us in the back, and ordered our food, and they started just telling stories. And there's something about Southern storytellers that's just amazing, how not only are they listening and absorbing, but they're relating, and the next story is generating there. And just to watch those two do that was amazing. Well, the crowd thinned out. Willie had a habit when he went to the Sizzler of going in the back room. And if you haven't been to the Sizzler, it's a wonderful place out on Highway 6 East. And around the wall in the back room, they have bowling trophies. Gladys and her family were avid bowlers. And so Willie was prone to going and reaching up on the shelf and get a bowling trophy and just give it to whoever was with him and present him with some innocuous award like, this is Richard Cross, the king of morning talk, and he would give a speech with it. Well, he did that with Jimmy. Gladys came and got the trophy, put it back up, and our conversation lingered into 10 and 10:30, and the bottles got shorter, and finally Gladys came up and put the key on the table. She said, "Y'all put your dishes in the sink and put the key under the mat. I'm going home." And so that was a very memorable night. And had Jimmy Buffett, the part of the connection developed because of Dean Wells and Larry Wells got to be very good friends with Pete Buffett, who was Jimmy's mother, who came to Oxford many times and was just a wonderful woman. And so that's the Jimmy Buffett connection there.
That is absolutely outstanding. I was sitting here thinking as you were as you were relaying that story, what I wouldn't have given to be sitting at that table, not to say a word, just to listen. And I was also thinking about my late friend Charles Walker, who loved Jimmy Buffett so much, and how much he would have enjoyed sitting at the table there at the Sizzler and listening to that as well. Do you have time to hang with me for one more segment? I really do want to get to the debate.
Do I have time? I have nothing but time, Richard.
That's fair. You were kind enough to get up early with me. I thought we would wrap things up here, but I teased it before the break, that the reaction when you had to take on a role as part of the planning for the 2008 first presidential debate in Oxford between John McCain and Barack Obama. We've got a minute until the break, so give me just kind of a tease of high level when you learned about the debate happening on Ole Miss and what it meant, what the significance of that was.
We knew it was going to be historic, and we knew that I don't think anybody can ever imagine the attention to detail that was given to that debate. I mean, it was like an hour or hour and a half on television, but it was months in the planning and every detail, technology, content. I love talking about it. It's one of the great days in Ole Miss history.
We'll get to that coming up, and I'll ask Sparky what his favorite story is from the book. Lance, there's a reason that you are the best in the business, and that bump music from Jimmy Buffett is it, among other things. More Mornings with Richard Cross with Sparky Reardon right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross. Glad to be with you on this Tuesday morning, the 29th of July. Sparky Reardon is my guest. He is a relatively new published author. The title of his book is The Dean, Memoirs and Missives. It is an easy read, but it is an exceptionally well-written book. If you've read any of Sparky's stuff on Facebook that he's done through the years, you know how talented a writer he is. This is a book full of that. A lot of places that you can get the book. We'll tweet out a picture at Mornings Cross of the lineup of upcoming book signings that he's got. I would love for you to just tell stories all day, but our time is limited. So take me back to 2008. I was involved with the debate, not specifically through the university, but with helping put together and host a watch party for Senator McCain's campaign that happened on campus at the Lyric. But one of the things that just struck me is everybody in Oxford, and this was in the middle of football season. Ole Miss had a game at Florida that weekend, but everybody was locked in on what was going, from regular townsfolk to students, rich, poor, everything in between. Everybody in Oxford during that time was focused with kind of the world's eyes on the Ole Miss campus.
It was, and it fell to us. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay. It fell to us to provide a backdrop for that. Chancellor Kayat, his office, called me and said, Sparky, we want you to figure out something we can do with the students on the day of the debate. Because we're calling off class and we just don't want them hanging around. So I pulled together a tremendous group of students who could come up with ideas of what to do. And they came up with the idea of a festival in the Grove called Rock the Vote. And it was an attempt to get students to register to vote. That was the excuse. They got musical acts, North Mississippi All-Stars, Josh Kelly, Kudzu Kings. I think we had the Mayhem String Band. We had just tremendous music and the gospel choir. We had a DJ from Phoenix, one of my former students he's an award-winning country DJ, Ben Campbell, who is just a tremendous guy. He came in and emceed for us. And so when I went back to the chancellor and the committee, if you've ever been in the Lyceum in the boardroom on the second floor, it's the longest table you've ever seen in your life. And I was sitting there with administrators and government officials and debate officials, and they turned to me and said, "Okay, what are the students planning?" And I said, "Well, we're going to have a festival in the Grove." Well, you could have heard a pin drop. Here they're envisioning game day or a concert at night and everything. I said, "Well, let me tell you first." And so we went over it. There was some saving issues that I convinced them. One, we had tremendous corporate support from Microsoft, Apple, Cellular South, C-Spire Cellular South at the time. Lots of different companies brought in buses with new technology that the students could go in and play games and make recordings and do things. And then we had food. We had what's the barbecue place in Birmingham? Is it Nick and Sam's? What?
Dream
Really good. No, in Birmingham. Somebody will tell me. But we had
Jim and Nick's.
Jim and Nick's, yeah. We had John Fosse from Louisiana. We had Taqueria del Sol from Atlanta. We had Taylor Catfish. We just had tremendous food offerings. But I think what really sold was we had an area called Issues Alley. And the students came up with this, and I was so impressed with them for doing this. They said, we need somewhere where people can differ. And so we went out to every advocacy group we could think of, the NRA, Right to Life, pro-choice. We had groups from every background, and they reserved tables and set up along the sidewalk coming out of Farley Hall. And we had the Rednecks for Obama. We had windmills in the Grove, supporting wind power. And it was just a beautiful scene of democracy and to be true. And the students interacted with each other. The tables went back and forth, questioning each other in a civil way. The food was great. The music was great. We had registration. We had Chris Matthews and Sean Hannity out in front of the
What
Union. We had Harry
Sparky,
Smith, not together. Go ahead. I know.
Okay. I was going to say, side by side, that would have been something. Unfortunately, we are out of time. The title of the book is The Dean, Memoirs and Missives. You can get it at bookstores, which Sparky encourages you to do, all across the state of Mississippi and the South. You get to pick what your favorite story is. Sparky, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Richard, thank you, my friend. Look forward to seeing you soon. Go Rebs.
You as well. Thank you.